Boringdon Hall is set in its own grounds, perfectly positioned in a quiet location just 5 miles outside of Plymouth. Every corner of this spectacular Grade 1 listed Elizabethan manor house is steeped in history, and past visitors have included Sir Walter Raleigh, Sir Francis Drake and Queen Elizabeth I.
The main house, which is the building we're in at the moment, 16th century, it was an uncompleted Elizabethan house. You see of the main house is only sort of about 3/4 of it. It was owned by the Parker family, who then went on to build and live in Saltram House. And there's supposed to be tunnels that link the two houses together with access supposedly underneath the car park. Busiest months, usually April to October. Once Mothering Sunday's out of the way, that's when our business picks up. And then up until October. November's usually a quiet month and December's busy. But January, February and March are usually fairly quiet.
Boringdon Hall is reputedly one of the most haunted places in Plymouth. Room 15 is infamous for ghostly sightings.
Of all the bedrooms that we have here, room 15 is probably my favourite. Never experienced anything in there. Never feel frightened when I'm in there. We get more complaints from guests that say they haven't been terrorised during the night than those that have been. But it's quite frequently asked for and quite frequently asked to be avoided. So it's a well-known room. There's been various sort of photos taken in the hotel and supposed orbs and things like that. It could just be light. I myself took several photos from a bridal fair. A number of those had little sort of little round lights on them, and you do wonder. The Elizabethan suite, which sits above reception, now and again you hear footsteps up there, and you know that nobody's necessarily up in that room, but it's very clear footsteps rather than creaking of floorboards. And it's believed that there's children that run up and down there, and it does sound very much like that. If things happen, it's generally around Christmas and if we're doing refurbishment, but they say spirits don't like change. The room was exercised about 8 years ago because a lady and gentleman thought they were being suffocated with a pillow, and actually fled the hotel in the middle of the night. And to this day, the man will not come up to the hotel. Won't step foot on the drive, will come up to the hotel. The woman's been up to the hotel, but she won't come into the room. My colleagues have seen faces at windows. There's supposed to be a woman that, when this was an actual manor house, she was a servant for the master of the house, and supposedly she fell pregnant by him and committed suicide by throwing herself off the turret. So there's supposed to be a ghost of a baby. So it has been known that people have heard a baby cry in the main house, and there hasn't been anything here. The clock here doesn't have any cogs or chimes, and on occasion it has been known to chime. I had an office just down the corridor previously, and now and again you would hear a clock chime. You wouldn't necessarily pay any attention to it, and it wasn't until you sort of walked out of the office and came along here and thought, well, that clock doesn't work, but I could hear it chime. The nearest clock is actually in reception, but it's quite some distance away, and that's the only clock in the building that does actually have a working cog system. This is our Elizabethan suite. This is our largest function room. Usually at Christmas you have a lot of running footprints that you hear from downstairs in reception, and it's believed to be 2 children. Even when the room is set up for a function with numerous tables, you hear the children running almost like in a straight line as though the tables weren't there. And like I said, it normally happens just at Christmas, but it's quite eerie when you hear them, because you know there's nobody up there. We've got CCTV cameras up in this room now, and you still hear the footprints. Quite often you hear like creaky floorboards, but you put that down to it being an old building. But this is definite footprints that you hear up here, and like I said, you know full well there's no one up here. I mean, our night porter used to say that it was definitely children. He could hear laughing and it sounded like children playing, but that tended to be more at night, that you could actually hear voices as such. This area was investigated by ghost hunters back in the summer, and a medium picked up that there's an angry man in this vicinity who wanted them to leave. He wasn't very pleased with them being there at the time and just said, get out, get out. So I must admit I've never been scared of this before, but I don't like coming through in the dark. I'm not sure the lights are on now. You do sort of see shadows and things like that, and I think because we work here we put logic into action and think, no, it's just a shadow, don't worry about it. But there's things, only a couple of weeks ago I was walking up the staircase and just thought there was someone behind me, so I went to hold the door open for them and there was no one there. And they could have gone into the kitchen or Elizabethan suite, but both doors were closed and I didn't hear them open or close, so they could have gone back downstairs. And you tend to put logic to these things, because otherwise you'd be paranoid all the time.
Sorry about that. Okay.